Hello, everyone. I'm Yasmin Dunn, Director of Education and Outreach for the Hollywood Commission, and welcome to Power Women Summit, Behind the Scenes and Below the Line. Let's meet our incredibly, ridiculously talented panelists. We have with us today Jacqueline West, costume designer of Dune, Genty Yates, costume designer most recently of House of Gucci, Katie Byron, production designer, Come On, Come On, Sharon Davis, costume designer, King Richard, and Sue Chan, production designer on Shang-Chi. I am so overwhelmed to be with this amazingly talented group of ladies. So thank you for joining us here today. I have a lot of questions. So I wanted to just jump right in with one that I thought was particular to this group of women. So prior to the recent ratification of the new IATSE contract, we heard from members, particularly women, large numbers of women, about unsafe and unsanitary working conditions on set. And I'm curious about your thoughts on these revelations, and if the open conversations, do you think will have any ramifications on the work and the environment moving forward? So I'm going to go ahead and just start with Katie, if you don't mind.
Oh my gosh. I was hoping that I could just listen to everyone because, yeah, everyone on this panel is like a hero of mine. Okay, geez. I mean, I think there's a lot to say about like the change that's coming to Hollywood in our industry. And I think we're really on the verge of something really incredible and special. And I think that we're so lucky to work in an industry that like has a community that's an in-person collection of people that work together. As I talk to a lot of people nowadays, a lot of people don't have that. And the fact that we work together with each other, I think we can bond together and create change and hopefully affect other industries outside of our own. So, I mean, I just feel like our industry can really be a point of, I'm really supportive, and I'm really excited about where we're headed.
Great, thank you. Sharon, do you have any thoughts on that question?
Well, I'm sure everyone here probably had to work in 2020, and it was very, finding solutions for what we took for granted in an already fast-paced industry was so eye-opening. I was just shopping alone and looking for fabric was a challenge. And I felt that even though we were aware that there was a pandemic, there were people above us that were still at business as usual, which really was stressful. I found that very stressful. And I'm hoping that that became obviously a big awareness as to why people were now unhappy with the ratification. I perhaps in the future it will be better, and we'll be able to go to the doctor when we need to and not cancel, and we will be able not to work every weekend. I mean, these are very important things for your health and also for you to do the best job possible. So, I mean, I do agree that at least you have your comrades and your unions and everyone discusses it. And basically, even without the IATSE, we can change the situation. We can just not do it. We can just start setting our own boundaries for our own personal health and our lives. That's my little thought about that.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's an excellent point in terms of what we can do collectively and what you guys can do as leaders of departments. So does anyone have anything that they are currently doing or would like to start doing on the next production in terms of just sort of setting your own boundaries, as Sharon said?
Saturdays. I'm against them.
Saturdays, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I really feel for my crew on a really fast-paced, hard-moving, fast-moving, challenging movie to only have one day off. And that's basically what that amounts to. you gear yourself. We all went to school and we gear ourselves to Fridays, right? And gear in our headset is having 2 days off, and it often gets us through the week, knowing you have that comfort zone on the weekends. And when you work all night Friday night and your crew has to work all Friday night, they sleep all day Saturday, they have only Sunday off. And we all know Sundays are not restful because it's already on our mind what we have to confront the next day. Friday nights are blissful, and because it means Saturday's in front of you. When you don't have that, and you've had to sleep all day Saturday and nothing, and not really have a weekend to yourself to look forward to recharge your crystal, so to speak, it's horrific for a crew. So
Yes.
I just think that if you want to get the most out of your crew, you have to take care of them. And I have a big problem, and I've talked to the producers on movies about it, and it seems to be a more and more reoccurring situation.
Yes, I would agree. I think the art department costumes were often the ones that everybody assumes we're going to get it done, because so often we do. You know, we have big crews, we have a lot of prep. Somehow that seems to equate to production, that we've done all this work ahead of time and that changes don't mean a thing. Obviously, that's ridiculous. And as the heads of our departments, as the sort of necessary creatives, we really need to just draw a line in the sand and say, and if nothing else, educate them about what it's actually going to take. It's going to cost you, it's going to do this. And just because the shooting company and the actors get a full weekend doesn't mean that always means we do. You know, we always have to be ahead of everybody. And so I think there needs to be sort of a culture from the top down that really, you know, appreciates and sort of emphasizes mental health, physical health, all of those things. And it's really up to us to hammer that home from the beginning. You know, it's very common for, you know, the producers to just hammer our lead men, our decorators, our construction people, and not come to us first, because they know that the worker bees are going to feel like they need the hours, or they can persuade them, or that they're going to be more malleable. But they know that if they come to us, then we might go screaming to the director or screaming at them or something like that, and they don't want to deal with it. And then so it's often they work around us, and it's really important to not let that happen. You know, it's not easy. I'm not saying that like I have succeeded on every job to do that, but I feel like I need to let my team, as Jacqueline said, know that I'm supporting them. They can come to me and I will take their grievances to the producers as forcefully as I can.
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting. That sort of leads into my next question that I had, just, you know, thinking about this broader question of safety that's also been in the news and on our minds recently. What do you like? How can we encourage our leaders to create safer workplaces? And I'm talking a broader definition of safety. So it's physical safety, psychological safety. What tools do our leaders, our producers, our first-time directors, people need to be able to create those environments for below-the-line workers? Janty, I'd love to hear from you if you have any thoughts on this.
Well, basically, I'm stuck in Europe. So I'm so proud of IATSE. I'm proud of being a member of your union, but the rules just get thrown out of the window in Europe. I've been doing 3 different jobs in Italy. They treat it like back in the 1960s. The trucks are appalling. The facilities are appalling. The green rooms on set are just a tent with a chair in them. It's just really, really appalling. And basically, I am so delighted that IATSE are doing this, because it will spread out. But we've got to change from the top. And it's a very misogynistic industry. And the more women we can get in, I worked for MGM last year. I had the best relationship with the head of physical production, a woman, and the president, a woman. I had email communication. I've never had that in 40 years from any male in any position of power. And I'm quite cross about it, actually. But our arms are chopped off at the armpits. We don't really have a leg to stand on. So I'm so delighted that we're moving forward. It's terrific. It's exciting. And I can't wait.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any other thoughts on that? Any tools that I'm always interested to hear from below the line, and I have to say that I really struggle with that term. I don't like it at all. So I'm interested to hear what the workers and people in your position, basic crafts, and everybody who does all the things. What do you wish that our producers and our leaders and our financiers and our studios were doing to ensure safety?
Well, I think one of the things that we can do directly is that we can educate directors who are coming up. The directors who are coming up who are, young and cutting their teeth on their first films, we have their ears from the beginning, and we can say to them, look, this is what we go through, not just to talk about the creative part of it, but this is what my crew has to go through to deliver this thing that I am pitching to you, whether it's the costume or the sets, and sort of make them understand so that when they're conversing with the producers, it's in their ear and they say, well, I understand that this is what has to happen. And, how can you reconcile this thing that you're asking them to do with this thing that I've asked them to do? And I think that that's part of it, and really not just the directors, but the young producers. And there are plenty of older, more seasoned producers and directors who are also very responsible, very interested in safety. I think every movie has its culture. I've definitely been on movies where they're, 10-hour days. I'm not going to put people through that. And I've been on other movies where they just don't care. It's just the bottom line, get it done. And so, hopefully those folks will be drummed out of the industry when better people replace them. But I think, again, we need to just we have the experience. We need to tell them, this is what it takes.
Right.
Even if that's not your job, you should know this is what it takes.
I think it would take a very long time to filter down, though. I think more women at the top is just as essential. It's essential. Why aren't there more women at the top?
I absolutely agree. When you have a woman producer, or I've done a couple movies with Mary Parent, who's the head of Legendary. She listens to everything you say and does something about it. I have to say she's a hero of mine. And again, it's a woman who is, much more, I agree with Janty, much more in tune with taking care of a crew.
Exactly.
Sympathetic, listens, and acts on it.
Right. And conversely, we can, make sure that we are valuing those skills and in men. I think that that's also part of what happens is that what we value for them and their business skill set is not actually what we need to be a good leader in terms of empathy and listening and everything that you just spoke to. So I just want to shift gears a teeny bit, but something else that we heard a lot about as this information was in the public sphere is a lack of diversity in your jobs, in your crafts, and in a lot of IATSE. So what is your take on building the pipeline? What do you feel like is your responsibility at this point in your careers to build a diverse and inclusive pipeline?
I personally, we struggle for anybody. There is so much work in England and Europe. It is ridiculous. And unfortunately, nothing to do with diversity, but there are people who might start as a runner and then suddenly they're an assistant designer because basically there aren't the people in Europe. There aren't the skilled people. And that drives me crazy. We don't have we do obviously have a diversity problem, but my whole thing is more women all the time in every single walk of film life, basically. However, we can't even get the staff, we can't get the runners, we can't even get assistants, etc. So we're just having to go from, we've seen, haven't we, when armourers supply their daughters, etc.
I agree with Jonty that what we have to do, we just have to hire more women. We have to hire more minorities. I think that in different parts of the world and different parts of the country, you're going to get a different pool of candidates. I'm in Atlanta now, and I was thrilled that I was able to populate my entire art department with minorities, you know, and women. You know, African-American crew are coming up in Atlanta, and it's terrific. You know, in LA, not so much. You know, in Australia, I was able to hire lots of Asians, which is terrific. And Marvel, I don't know if they're doing this going forward, but certainly on our film, they had paid positions earmarked just for minority folks who were like entry level. Every department got 2 people who, you know, should be, in our case, Asians, who were going to learn their craft alongside with more seasoned professionals. And that is something every studio should do, in my opinion. For every department, there should be a paid position, and you can hire a minority, you can hire a woman, you can hire a woman or minority, you know, it shouldn't be so hard. And so I think it has gotten better. You know, in my 20 odd years doing this, there were no minorities when I started out, and very few women. And now there's a lot more women in the art department. There are definitely but you know, it varies by whether they're in construction or paint or set designers or illustrators or art directors. You know, it's and you know, I think we all, sometimes you have to sacrifice experience, but you know, we all have to like pitch in and maybe do more, or you have a really experienced person with an inexperienced one, just so you can get them into the department so that they get a good credit and they can take on the next project. And you know, I think that's just something that we all have to do.
Sharon,
So
did you have something?
You have to avoid opportunists. That's the only thing I would say.
That's a good point. Sharon?
Oh, yes. Well, you know, being a minority myself, I hear what everyone's saying. And I have, in the last 15 to 20 years, hired a few young women and just kind of raised them. And now they're their own designers. I just, you know, I don't wait for the studio to help me. I just jumped in and honed these ladies and took them under my wing. And I do it. I try to do it on every show. Any, you know, even if it's a man, I mean, if he's willing to, you know, work as a PA or, you know, work his way up and learn it, I'm willing to hire him and help him achieve that goal. So it's really important that they have a mentor of sorts to guide them through the politics. And also because it's so brutal, and the way people talk to you, and you've got to know the difference of when it is against you, when it's racially inspired, or when it's just film, And I was saying 98% is just film. The crassness, the rudeness, and you have to acquire a tough shell to deal with that kind of abuse.
It's one industry where it's still allowed, you know.
Exactly.
Yes, I mean,
no one wants to speak up because they think they'll never work again.
Right.
I mean, I used to have a clothing company, and you know, you can ever raise your voice or you know, talk disrespectfully to someone, you will be so you know, gone after. You'll have lawyers at your front door. Not that I did, but I have friends that own huge companies, clothing companies in the Bay Area, and it's just not accepted. And somehow in the film business, the, you know, megalomaniacal thing is absolutely not addressed.
Interesting.
Exactly.
I mean, there's so many, I've said no to so many films just because a director has a certain reputation. And I want to put myself in a position where life's too short to work with people who aren't nice to other people.
Right.
I mean, I've had people on my crew go after other people more subordinate in position, and I've fired them. I said, I don't yell at anyone. Nobody on my crew gets to yell at anyone else.
Mhm.
And you have to start somewhere. And that's where I started. I'm
Right.
not going to allow anybody to go after anyone. There's no reason you can't get something done by being nice.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
That's
exactly.
great. No, I think that that's a wonderful way to approach it and make sure that you are, to Sharon's point, doing what you can in your little corner of this big system rather than waiting.
It has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, we have to, make an example in our own departments and at least be protective of the people that work for us.
Mhm, mhm. No, and then as Sharon said too, I think, having that, it's in my mind, it goes a little bit beyond mentorship, but it's also this idea of sponsorship where you are publicly vouching for someone else and saying, I'm happy to recommend this person. I'm putting my name on the line. And I think that does a lot to diversify our up and coming people and who's getting hired if you are vouching for them. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some creative stuff because as I said, you are all so brilliant and I'm a little intimidated to be here with you. Katie, I wanted to hear from you. I read something interesting about your creative process and I'm curious about what you think makes a really great relationship. Like how, because we talk a lot about representation in the room, but how do you ensure that your voice and your creativity shows up in the final product? And how do you manage that relationship with a director or the rest of your team?
Oh man. Well, I feel like I've been really grateful and lucky to have been working with really wonderful collaborators the past 5 years or so. I mean, I think I've had a history of working with good collaborators, but like something recently, I don't know, it's like when you work with someone that trusts you, when you work with someone that respects you, you end up like wanting to give them the world out of love. And then that it sort of becomes like a love language, this idea of wanting to sort of deliver out of love and respect. And then kind of also working that same way with your crew, like really realizing that like if we all do something out of love for each other and out of like compassion and kindness, then all of a sudden the project becomes like a bit more like exciting and playful and fun. So that relationship, I think it works above, towards the director. It also works for my crew, and I think that like it creates this collaborative process all over the place. And I think that the first person that really kind of taught me that was Olivia Wilde, working with her, just because the level of trust she had in us was just immense. And so we could pass that on. And so when we're talking about change in Hollywood and how it needs to come from the top, I really felt that. I really felt like getting that respect from the director and getting to hand that back to the crew. Everybody like wanted the job to last forever, and everybody was really content and happy and proud of what we made. And honestly, it was one of those things when we made Booksmart, we're like, well, maybe it was too special of a process. And we were happy with the results. So it kind of broke the mold. And I think that's been the system I've employed ever since. It's just compassion, kindness, and I meditate with my crew sometimes. We get weird, we have fun. We just get as playful as possible to pull off something that is our industry, and our filmmaking is doing impossible things all the time. So that's the process.
Great, thank you for that. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this idea of making sure that your voice and your creative vision shows up in the final product?
Well,
Part of it is, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say, usually for me, it's all about the director. You put your hands and your creativity in their hands. And if you have somebody really fabulous that is, out there watching over the big picture, then it seems to go it just, things seem to fall into place. And you're, if a really creative director with a vision hires you, they usually have seen something in your past work or in your interview that allows them to put trust in you and just let you do your thing. And that's the optimum situation. And I think the creativity part really filters down from the director.
Yeah,
For me,
exactly.
for me,
Yeah.
who I throw in with is the important part.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with Jacqueline about that. Directors who you have a rapport with right off the bat are just a delight to work with. And you may not agree on everything right off the bat. You may disagree about some things all the way down the line, but at least you're dialoguing about it, and you're having a constructive, goal-oriented way to solve a particular problem. I sort of feel like the balance, it's a combination of checking your ego at the door, but also persisting in what your ideas are. And then as each collaborator comes on, it's fun, to work with the director and then the cinematographer and the costume designer and visual effects. And, it's fun to everybody brings something different to the table. And each person has, not so much an agenda, but a different point of view about where you're all headed. And being able to both listen and communicate to get all the ideas out there is super important. And so I love that part of it, especially in prep, but I also enjoy conveying all of that to my team. And there's nothing that I discuss with the director or the cinematographer or the costume designer that I don't then immediately spill onto my team, because they all have things to contribute when they're going to add things to all the ideas that are swirling around up here. And they're going to even, they're going to create this great foundation for them, so that hopefully by the time we're actually shooting it, it all feels extremely cohesive. So that's in the ideal situation. Not every movie is ideal, of course, but if you kind of start and you have enough time and everybody's talking to each other, maybe you get there.
Yeah, I so agree with you, Sue. It's like the perfect ready room when you and the director and the production designer, and I find the first department head start, and that just creates this whole, a little more depth than what I could bring, so I have a little more backstory. And then I love to actually get the input of the actor. And then I like to then circle back to the director and the production designer, and it's like making a cake, just keep folding in ingredients, and then I start baking.
Yeah, I call it ping pong.
Batting back and forth. Yeah.
You want a happy actor, you want a happy director. It's a collaborative thing. But I've worked for Ridley for so long, I can't really talk about other directors, but I've just got a great team at the moment, and I just wish we were given more time. And again, I think it's a male thing, and we as costume designers and production designers, we're expected to do it. We're just expected to do it. You can do it in that time. They give us 2 months prep. No, I can't, but you do. You do it struggling, doing 7-day weeks. You do it. You just do it because we're trained to do it. But there is a big ask, I know, but they should really budget more time for us. And then you don't have your fratter days.
Right. Janty, I just have to ask you one thing. I've worked with a lot of directors more than once, but you've worked with Ridley for so long. Does he just leave you to it? It's just a personal question.
Does he sleep? Did you say?
Does he just leave you to it? Does he just?
Oh, no. No, he's incredibly collaborative. He's very costume.
So he likes costumes.
He loves costume. Yeah, I'm so lucky. And now we have a certain shorthand, and that's great as well. But he's very proactive. And God, if he left me to it, would never make a movie probably. So I need him to kick me up the arse.
That's fantastic. So we've talked a lot about the creative process and a collaboration and a team that does work. What do we do when it doesn't work? I feel like this is a question that at the Hollywood Commission, we try to provide answers and training and resources for people. What do you do when you're navigating a difficult conversation, especially about something as personal as representation, particularly if it's your own culture that you are having to justify? How have you learned to navigate these difficult conversations about authentic representation, since that is such a huge part of all of your jobs?
Authentic representation about fighting for a certain look that you feel is.
Yeah, I mean, what happens when there's a crossroads or there's an impasse, if you're saying this is actually the way this should be represented, and you're getting pushback, and I think that's, especially right now, I know that there are a lot of people who are dying for that accuracy and need to see the authentic representation on screen. And how do you push for it? How do you navigate that conversation?
Well, I feel we're a creative team, and we're actually hired to design, or we're hired to make a film. So there is got to be a little bit of creative originality,
right,
to like even a biopic like I did. I mean, there are scenes that I did match perfectly to real photographs that they did, but in the quiet moments in their house, it's important to convey the story or the feeling to the audience. And so I would not put what they probably had on. I want to put how they feel, or how I need the audience to understand the storyline. And I will argue that, and had to argue that. Because they don't know the whole story. So we're telling a story. So sometimes the clothes are the catalyst to something that, if we put what they really were, would not really make sense.
Yeah, I don't think that you can always if you only did strict realism, then it wouldn't be heightened in the way that everybody goes to cinema for.
Not a film.
Exactly. There's a degree to which you have to go further, and I think that you're never going to satisfy everybody. Culture is such a big umbrella. It encompasses so much, and I think you just have to make the decisions together with your collaborators. And certainly, I've gotten pushback from people who I consider to be outside of the creative process, to say, are you sure you can do that? Is somebody going to get upset? Is that authentic? And sometimes the answer is yes, it's authentic, but somebody might get upset. So which you choose your poison, and then it's the further conversation. And I could argue and argue and argue, and then I might still lose it ultimately depends on the director. I'm there to work for the director, and if they've deliberated about all of my arguments and they still choose to do what the outsider thought, there's nothing I can do about that.
Are you talking about an outsider, i.e. a producer?
A producer, a lawyer,
Producers.
Yeah, producer clearance,
someone like that. Yeah, or maybe none of the above. It's happened many ways. So,
Interesting. That's great.
I'm so frustrated if that happened. I would get so angry. I'd get so mad.
Yeah, well, we all have a high pain threshold.
But it does actually happen. If I was to think back and analyze it, it does happen. But I think I'm fortunate in that respect, because I just work for Ridley Scott. So it's always the last, the last film's always the last film, never assume, never assume.
I think the strong director is the key. And if you really do your homework and have good reasons behind your choices, like Sharon just said, telling the story and being able to sell that this particular choice you've made, furthers the story, and you have a good, strong director, they are going to stand behind you and you're going to get away with it. It's all about a director with a really strong vision and you know, some incredible films behind him, like Ridley, you know, he's
And Martin.
you up. The producers are not going to say boo to Ridley.
Mhm.
Well, you just mentioned it in a sentence. Well, Ridley said, oh, suddenly
Yes.
doors open.
Yes, absolutely. And I believe there's so much to be said for as you you know, expand your career, that picking your director is more important sometimes than picking the project. For me,
And I also think even young directors.
when I feel I'm in good hands, I can be much more creative.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know I'm going to be backed up by the
Right.
director I'm working with.
Right. And
Yes.
Sue, what were you saying?
I was going to say that I think also even sometimes young directors, if they're getting a shot, they feel like, oh, they have to pick their battles. But I think what they don't realize is they have a lot of power. I mean, they're directing the movie. And what they need to learn is that they can really, you know, be firm and push their ideas. And I think some of them are better than that than others. And some are just so creatively strong, even if they're young, that they can just say to the producers or whoever, no, this is what I'm going to do. And here's why. And that's it.
Right.
End of story. This is what I'm going to do. And I agree that I think those directors, young, experienced, older, whatever, those are the best to work with because they're just single-minded. Here's my story. Here's how I want to tell it. You know, I disagree with you. Let's move on. And I think that's just the best.
Right. That's excellent. So while we're talking about new directors, first-time directors, I want to leave this panel just drawing on this wealth of experience. What advice do you have for people who are entry-level workers who are coming in, starting now, post-pandemic, post-ratification and almost strike? What can we tell new workers who are coming in to get like how to navigate everything that's happening?
I'd just tell them never to say no.
Okay. Anybody else?
I feel that the younger generation as a whole is a little bit wiser than us about taking care of themselves and not really standing strong about having their weekends and their time off.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm going to say for the last 10 years, people have been complaining that these young people, they don't want to stay, they don't want to work late, but they're truly taking care of themselves. You know, they are, work is over. This is a job and I am leaving.
Mhm.
So I tell them to respect that, respect how you feel about that. But while you're at work, do 100%,
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
do your best and keep a great attitude. And don't, you know, and like Janti said, the no thing, don't ever say no. It's just work around that. I never say no. I'll say, I'll see what I can do. Let me get back to you. There's a million answers, but no is never the answer on a film set. So I think that the younger generation is going to be the change of the industry, personally.
Mhm.
I think they're gonna set it. And it's really not even a change, is it, Janti? Because when we started out, it was slower. You know, production was somewhat slower
True.
due to the
That is-
fact that we did not have communication devices as a cell phone. We didn't have a computer, you know, so we had to work off, you know, production sheets that were written, handwritten, and it was fabulous.
Landlines and phone boxes and oh my
Pagers,
Pagers.
Pagers.
Right.
proper phone booth.
But everything had to be so well prepared each day,
Mhm.
you know, and the director really had to know, everyone had to really know their job for us to get through it.
I've worked with Terrence Malick a lot, and there was a call sheet once, and it was a big scene, a white call sheet. And the next day I came in and it was a blue call sheet. And it was one scene on the call sheet, and it said, to be shot only if the magic presents itself.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought
God.
the producers must be going crazy. That's why he has uses all private money. No one can say,
Oh, I love it, Jackie. You should have framed that.
yeah.
That's true.
The Malick movie is like so calm and old-fashioned, and you have time to think and create, and it is so respectful of every single person. I've never heard him raise his voice at anyone. But imagine a call sheet with a scene, to be shot only if the magic presents itself.
I love that. I feel like I'm going to say that to Anita all the time now. I'm only going to work if the magic presents itself. Anybody else have any thoughts on what we say to entry level people coming in?
I always tell them to ask lots of questions. I think that there is so much that you don't know. There's so much that I don't know. I think that, a day should not go by in which you don't ask a question of somebody or everybody in the art department. And then, trust your instincts as you develop, work with good people, don't work with bad people.
I agree.
Hard to decipher at the beginning, though.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
That's why you ask the questions.
Right. And every film with a different director and a different crew is completely different than the next. So if you've done, 4 films and you think you know it all, you can't go in with that attitude. You've got to know that you have to come in. It's a clean slate, and it's a new canvas to paint. It's always entirely different. So always just be aware and listen and learn. And don't think that you know it all because you've done a few films.
Yeah.
every film is different. Every film is a new world.
Mhm. Katie, do you have any thoughts?
Oh man, I'm just listening to everyone. I mean, I one thing I keep thinking about is how everyone on this panel is so confident. And it took, I feel like I'm working on it. I'm still, it's funny because I feel like if all these questions, I often ask myself like, but is that the right answer? I constantly question myself. And yeah, I feel like it's really beautiful to get to sit with you guys and hear these stories and to like just to see you all so firm, and I'm humbled, that's all. So
Well, you shouldn't be, because
Right.
Yes.
They don't always listen to us, but
I tell everybody who works with me to, watch every old movie they can by all great directors and read as many books as they can. And I don't think anyone listens to me, especially about the reading. Reading gives you a certain confidence. There's certain writers that you can't read and not get some, learn something from. And when you learn something, it gives you more confidence. Each thing you learn, D.H. Lawrence taught me so much. I just feel every writer that I've read has taught me something. If you read, some good writers, and I try to give people a lot of my younger crew members will come to me and ask a film list or a reading list. I don't know if they really, pursue it afterwards, but it is confidence giving, especially to young people coming up. You can't learn everything in school.
Right.
I felt my education started after I graduated from university. I started reading everything I couldn't read because of my curriculum at school. And I was voracious, but I was living in a town, Berkeley, where there were more books per capita in Berkeley than any other city in the world. And it was all bookstores, and everybody wanted to outdo everybody in what they read. And so people were so confident because they read so much. know? And when you approach actors and directors, if you have done your homework and have reasons for your choices, they tend to listen.
Mhm.
That's great
Right.
advice. I will gladly take you up on your recommended reading list as well. Well, I think that that's about it for us, unless anyone has any final thoughts, things that they want to add.
I just want to say it's just great to see the people I know and meet some new people in the industry.
Oh, yeah. And Jackie, I don't have your phone number. It's driving me crazy.
I wanna write it.
You have mine,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
I
I'll text it or write it to
I
you.
have your email only.
I
Even
think this
though
panel is
Jackie and I have offices next door to each other and we haven't even been there.
I haven't been there, Sharon, for
Neither have I.
22 months.
A while.
I know, bless
The
you.
cobwebs going across my office.
I want to compliment whoever put this panel together, because I just think the range of all of our experiences and the different things we've done is just delightful. I think that just to comment on what you said, Katie, I think your approach is every bit as, valid as being, a confident, been around the block, whatever person we are, because I think being humble and generous is equally as important
Right.
as being, full of vigor and vinegar. I think that I think that's just as good, and it's just great to see the range.
Yes, I love
absolutely.
that you meditate. I love all that. I think that's-
Fantastic.
you inspire your crew to do their best, and you inspire them to have a reason to come. So that's fantastic.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for watching this, and enjoy the rest of the Power Women Summit.